Bass Case. I'm your host, Phil. Bass Case 008, Blues Shuffle. I think I'm getting to the end of blues episodes for you guys that are listening, and I'm getting more and more listeners all the time, but probably not, maybe. It shows you the depth of the blues in American music. I mean, I've talked about this in a previous episode where blues changes, blues form, blues licks are found in all kinds of music. I mentioned that it was even in disco, and I was thinking about that today because I heard William Grant Still. He was one of the great African-American composers of symphony back in the early part of the 20th century, and he had a blues-infused symphony that's still played to this day. But today I'm going to deal with a particular groove that you find in the blues, and it's the shuffle. And I was thinking about that because several years ago I was talking to a musician that was just as experienced as I was. And I told him that I was looking for a chart for my jazz ensemble, my jazz big band. And I said, I'm looking for a shuffle. And I was talking about it, and he finally says, I got to ask you, what's a shuffle? And I said, it's a particular groove. And then I kind of came up short, like we do a lot of times with music, instead of being able to give the academic response, it's kind of a triplet feel, I just sang the line, do 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 do, which everybody has heard. If you listen to music, if you listen to the commercials on television, you've heard that shuffle groove. That's the bass line, and it lines up, and your drummer will have a soft pedal on the bass drum to make it match, and it's used in commercials. You have a detective in a movie going to the bad part of town to check out a club. Sure enough, you're going to hear do 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 do, and it's from the African music syntax, but it was appropriated, and you find it in rock music, and you find it in jazz music, and you find it in country music, and it's been around for so long now that there's even different styles of it. According to academic scholars, there's a Chicago style shuffle, and then there's a Texas shuffle, that's basically your Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you want to listen to a very prime and seminal example of a blues shuffle, and it's not the only one, and there are countless others, listen to Albert King's recording of Kansas City. The bass player is Donald Duck Dunn, and if you're a serious electric player, you should check him out, and you can find this on YouTube. But for bass players, I break the shuffle groove down to two simple formulas or two simple grooves, and one of them is just like the one you heard me sing, where I'm just playing the groove on the root. And that will get you by, I've been on gigs where they say, hey, let's do a blues, and the drummer will start off with that shuffle, and let's say, hey, let's do one in A, and that will save you. So here's example one. I'm going to play a couple choruses of a blues in A, and I'm just going to stick on to the root and then move through the 1-4-5 chorus. So here's example one, just a simple shuffle. Nice and easy, just pedaling that A, going down to the D, or going up to the D, back to the 1, and here's that 5 chord, to the 4 chord. You've heard this, simple blues, that this will get you through it, and sometimes the simplicity of it is all you need. You don't need to make this more complicated. This is what sets the foundation for your soloist. Just going up to the D. I'm not doing anything outside of playing the roots, and nobody will think anything less of you. It's when you start doing different things with it is when you start getting yourself into trouble. So start with this if someone calls something like that. 5 and 1. There you go. Simple, right? Okay. Now here in example 2, I'm going to do the same groove where I'm staying on on the root of each chord, same key in A, but I'm going to add some little cliche runs and fills in the line, particularly on the back end of it. You're going to hear something that you've heard on numerous recordings, and these little fills are something, and sometimes the guitarist plays them and you double him or you double what he's playing. So check this out. Same thing, just a little bit more to it though. So here's example 2. Boo-ba-da-doo. Here we go. Here it is. And here's this part, which you've heard on numerous blues recordings. Second chorus, same thing. That walk up right to the D, cliche stock. You got to play it though. The drummers sometimes follow you on it. Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe Pride and Joy by Stevie. He does that line, and probably on countless other tunes by him and numerous blues artists. So check it out, and it's just something that you've heard, and it's handy to have. Don't do it too much. It's like anything else. You know, I teach my students something, and then I'll be in combo, and I'll hear it a million times in their choruses, and I'm like, okay, cool, but not too much of anything. We're here to protect a groove. Okay. Example 3 is a little bit more. I'm going to open it up a little bit more. And this is where I take the chord and I play around with it a little bit. But I'm basically just arpeggiating chord. This one's in B flat. I took this from a Tyrone Wheeler record. He played bass on an Abersaw, and they wrote all this out. And I remember studying this. And what you're going to hear is I'm going to be not only moving around the chord, but I'm going to be inserting these eighth note triplets, which are a big part of this. You know, you're playing in that groove, do 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 ba da do 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 ba da da ba da da ba da da. You have to think that groove, when you think about it, it's not so much a straight quarter, even though you're playing a da 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 da. That's the feel that you have in mind, even though you're not playing that on the instrument. You're sort of playing every other note of the triplet. So here is example 3, B flat blues, and a little bit more movement. You hear this a lot in jazz, but I've heard it in all styles of music. So here's example 3. Yeah, just moving through the chord, nothing fancy. I'm just moving through the roots and thirds and fifths. There you go. Da-ba-da. Just a walk down. Simple. You know, just play around with it. Listen to some recordings, like I said, that Tyrone Wheeler off the Volume 54 that Jamie Abersaw. That was a real good one. That was one that really set the tone for me. But it's a little bit busier than maybe is called for a lot of tunes, so be careful with that. Okay, now example 4 is not a blues, but as you've heard me say from time to time, like when I was talking about Cantaloupe Island, it kind of acts like one, and it's the intro and first verse to Steely Dan's Pretzel Logic, which has a very blues vibe to it if you check out the recording. And like I said, it acts like a blues because it doesn't play exact blues form or changes, but it's a shuffle. And it's interesting what's done on it. So check it out. Here's example 4, just the intro and first verse of Pretzel Logic. That's that little breakdown at the end of the verse. Now that's one's a little bit more intricate, and I check out it's intricate sounding because you got to do some counting in there for those breaks. But those breaks are part of the blues syntax too that we play as bass players. When you listen to Kansas City, he does that thing with the breaks, and you got to be there for them, and you've got to make sure you bring them back on the downbeat, right? So counting is key. But like I say, that's a good one. I want to kind of bring a shout out to the bass player on that recording. It was a man by the name of Wilton Felder, who was a saxophonist, and he was a West Coast cat that played. He was one of the founding members of the Jazz Crusaders, and he was known more as a saxophonist, but he played bass on a lot of seminal LPs. My favorite, and this is how I got to know him, was that the Jackson 5 hit, I Want You Back, he plays that groove and bass line, and I thought the guy had really nice technique, but most of all, he had a wealth of ideas that he probably got from the saxophone. He played on some Marvin Gaye records and numerous records in his lifetime, but probably one of the most unsung bass players that we copy. This last one is, and I mentioned it previously, the Kansas City bass line that Donald Duck Dunn plays. And I transcribed this, and it's from that recording of his from the 60s. And like I said, he's one of those bass players that when I first started studying the instrument, my bass teacher told me to check him out. And it's slightly different than what Tyrone Wheeler did. He keeps it a little bit simpler, but it's still moving around the chords. So here's example 5 of me playing 2 choruses of Kansas City, and I'm basically playing Donald Duck's line. You're just moving around the chords, but grooving. And you still feel where every chord is. And here's the top of the form 1 to the 4 chord. Here's the 4 chord. Back to the 1. Now here's the turnaround 5 chord, 4 chord. Nice and easy. The key is C of that one in case you're checking it out. Now, I say easy, and I mean it too. It's the simplicity of it, what these lines that these guys like Tyrone are playing, or what Wilton was playing, or what Donald Duck Dunn was playing. They're not doing anything, like when I think about complexities, I think about what bass players and saxophone soloists do over bop changes. These are far more, like I like to tell my students, the chords are stacked vertically, but not as tall. They're just triadic, and at most you might have a 7th from time to time. And to keep that idea in mind, that you're just playing roots, thirds, and fifths, and then the occasional 7th, and you're just bringing that line around. But the main thing is, like one of my teachers that told me years ago, he says, your job is to protect a groove. And that, if it just calls for that simple laying on the root and staying on the root and moving through the changes, then that is your job to do that. So think about that when you're practicing these grooves. And I will talk to you very soon, and I think I'm going to have something different besides the blues next time. So this is Phil signing off with Bass Case.